Please click the subscribe button and activate the notification bell before we begin the engrossing and tragic tale of Brian Jones, the founding member of the Rolling Stones. If you enjoy the rock fan of the star beats, you're in the right place. Let's get started. You won't want to miss our in-depth explorations of the untold tales of rock legends, their music, and the legacies they leave behind. One of the most mysterious and tragically misunderstood individuals in rock history is Brian Jones, the founder of the Rolling Stones. His legacy is characterized by both extraordinary musical genius and a self-destructive path that ultimately led to his untimely death at the age of 27. How did this brilliant mind, which helped shape the identity of one of the most iconic rock bands in the world, end up spiraling into chaos, isolated from the band he helped create? What drove him away from the Rolling Stones? Why did his life end under such mysterious circumstances? In this video, we'll delve deeply into the life of Brian Jones, from his revolutionary contributions to the Rolling Stones to his dramatic downfall. By revealing the details of his rise and fall, we hope to understand not just the man behind the music, but also the complex and tormented soul that was Brian Jones. As the founder of the Rolling Stones, Brian was the one who initially shaped their sound and image long before Mick Jagger and Keith Richards would dominate the songwriting. Mick Jagger, known for his stoic demeanor and preference for privacy, shocked the world when he finally spoke candidly about Brian Jones. Highlights as the band's beating heart, Brian's love of American blues served as the cornerstone of their sound, and his unwavering determination to push boundaries made the Rolling Stones a singular force in the music industry. Being the son of a civil engineer and a mother who encouraged his artistic side, Brian was exposed. Beginning, Brian was the one who gathered the band's members. It was his vision that united a motley crew of musicians who, under his direction, would eventually become the Rolling Stones, but Brian's influence went beyond that. He was instrumental in developing their early sound, which defined their gritty, edgy image, in addition to finding bandmates. The Stones gained notoriety for their rebellious sound, which was fueled by Brian's musical innovations. He brought in influences from jazz, blues, and rockabilly, fusing them into something new and fresh. Brian was instrumental in developing the band's sound, crafting their arrangements, and even acting as their unofficial manager. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards would eventually become the band's creative core. The band's first big break came with their cover of Chuck Berry's Come On, but it was Brian's original, genuine approach to the song that helped them discover their true voice. Brian was undeniably the architect of their early success. Songs like Not Fade Away and Little Red Rooster bore Brian's unmistakable musical imprint with his distinctive slide guitar work and his ability to push the boundaries of what rock music could sound like. His presence was all over their early albums, from their debut The Rolling Stones 1964 to Out of Our Heads 1965. It was also Brian who chose the name The Rolling Stones, inspired by the Muddy Waters song Rolling Stone, signaling his deep reverence for the blues. Little did Brian know this decision would define their legacy for decades to come. As the Rolling Stones began to gain momentum, the band's dynamic started to shift. While Brian had initially been the band's leader, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards soon became the driving forces behind their songwriting. By 1965, Mick and Keith had started writing hits like I Can't Get No Satisfaction, which would forever change the band's trajectory. As Jagger and Richards' songwriting partnership solidified, Brian started to feel marginalized by the band's changing sound, which was now shifting away from blues. As the power struggle between him and the two grew more intense and Mick and Keith took control of the creative process, Roots left Brian feeling more and more alienated and his role in the band eroded. Brian was struggling to keep his spot in the group, but the conflict went beyond music and was quite personal. Since Mick and Keith were the new faces of the Rolling Stones, Brian had always fought with validation, and his mounting fears were reflected in his growing isolation inside the band. As his involvement in the band started to wane, Brian felt not only creatively sidelined, but also emotionally abandoned by the very band he had helped form. Brian's personal life started to fall apart, and his long-brewing substance addiction problems got worse. Once the driving force behind the band's sound, Brian was now lost in a drug and alcohol haze. His unpredictable behavior increased in frequency, making it harder for the band members to work with him. Brian's physical and mental health suffered as a result of substance misuse, and his early creativity started to wane. The band's distinctive sound was defined by Brian's diverse musical inspirations, but his drug and alcohol abuse now impairs his judgment, making him untrustworthy and challenging to collaborate with. His health wasn't the only thing that was failing. Despite his decline, Brian continued to push forward. He was still a brilliant musician, but his personal demons were starting to take over. The more he spiraled into addiction, the more he became distant from his bandmates and from the music he had once loved. One of the most agonizing personal battles Brian faced was his tumultuous relationship with Anita Penberg. His relationships within the band were too. The once close-knit group was now broken, and his emotional and physical instability drove him further into isolation. In addition to being Brian's girlfriend, Anita was also a significant influence in his personal and emotional life. She had served as a source of inspiration for his music, but their relationship was far from ideal as his mental health declined and their relationship grew more toxic. However, things became even more complicated when Anita left him for Keith Richards. This betrayal devastated Brian on a personal and professional level, as Keith, his close friend and bandmate, had taken away the one person who had been a constant in his chaotic life. This was not just a romantic betrayal, it was a public fracture that was witnessed by the world, leaving Brian feeling abandoned by both his lover and his bandmate. The band had severe conflicts as a result of this betrayal. The once close-knit bandmate camaraderie vanished, and Brian's relationship with Keith deteriorated irreversibly, making them even more alone. The Rolling Stones were on the verge of becoming a worldwide superstar in 1969, but Brian was no longer a part of that future because his health had gotten so bad that he was unable to contribute to the band the way he used to. The band's musical direction had changed, and Brian was having trouble keeping up. Mick, after meeting to talk about Brian's future with the band, Keith and Charlie Watts agreed that he would be kicked out of the Rolling Stones. After leaving the Rolling Stones, Brian Jones agreed to leave quietly, but it was obvious that the decision had deeply affected him. He had been the band's heart, but now he was no longer a part of its journey. After leaving, Brian withdrew to his Sussex home, where he spent his last days in seclusion, living in a state of physical and emotional decline. He had hoped to start a new musical project, but his failing health and fragile mental state made that dream impossible to achieve. On July 3, 1969, just 1 month after leaving the Rolling Stones, Brian Jones was discovered dead in his swimming pool. The official cause of death was determined to be accidental drowning, but many believe the circumstances surrounding his death were more complicated than that. Despite the tragedy that characterized his final years, Brian Jones's contributions to the Rolling Stones and rock music in general remain indisputable. His life was a blend of brilliance, anarchy, and heartache, creating a legacy that still speaks to music fans today. Please share your thoughts and insights about Brian Jones's story and his contribution to rock history in the comments section below. If you liked this video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more engrossing tales about music legends. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in the next video where the music and the legends continue to live on.